Yeah. No, I'm alright myself. Thanks, love. Yeah.
I'll put it on your chest, so.
No worries.
Okay, now a lot of this is just paranoia because technology always fails.
No,
I'm even
So you got to back up.
I'm even shooting it on a GoPro. On the bottom of a cup.
Yeah, right.
There
So
you go, mate.
you got 3 cameras going.
I've actually got 3 cameras,
Nice.
but believe me, that's a good ratio for me.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Wait, that's more than we had on opposite.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One camera.
I was talking to Clayton Jacobson a little while ago, and I was shooting him with one of these cameras,
Yeah.
and I didn't bring in the big. I've got bigger cameras,
Yeah.
the Z5Ps and so on.
Yeah.
I didn't bring them in because I didn't want to sort of like overdo it. But I was shooting him with a small camera, and he said, "Do you know that when we made Kenny, that camera that we used didn't have the technology that these ones do?"
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
So it's, it is pretty amazing. So, and I'm just going to do audio on this,
Sweet, mate.
and then I'm going to quickly ask them if they can turn down this
Music.
The music, yeah.
horrible jazz fusion thing they've got going.
It's a bit elevated music for 1%, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I went home last night, but I didn't. So,
Oh, yeah, I was the same. I finished it, the dinner, and I was just like, oh, yeah. It's like tomorrow night, it's like tonight.
I'm sure their voices will improve nice and
Sound lately.
what did they say? No.
It wasn't too bad last night when the vacuum cleaner started right and started.
Gentlemen, congratulations on 1%,
Thank you.
which is, if you don't mind me saying, the kind of film we need to see more of.
No, it's nice to hear, mate.
What say to you?
No, I don't think that's it's a nice compliment to get because you go in and make a film and sometimes knowing a film like this could be quite polarising. You don't know where it's going to sit, but you know, we were honest and authentic in making it, and that's all we could do. And the ambition is always to make something that was effective.
Okay.
So I think we're managing that.
Okay, we'll get back to the film itself just in a second. But can you just tell me, just up until now, what success have you had so far overseas at festivals and with sales?
Well, I mean, we premiered in Toronto, and that was the great unknown because no one had seen the film yet, and we had a great response there. And then the day after our premiere, we pretty much sold the film to A24 in America, which is one of my favourite production company distributors over there. And, it was a huge success in terms of sales.
Now, has that been necessary to do that in order to get traction in Australia?
I think it helps. I think any success you have overseas helps build word of mouth. I mean, Aussies love, even if it's music, with bands as well. A band that goes overseas or a film that goes overseas has success. People want to hear about it and want to champion and support. So we've definitely had, that element, which has been great.
I guess what I'm suggesting, as has happened with some other filmmakers, is that sometimes they feel that their films don't get noticed locally until it's had a profile overseas. Wolf Creek, I guess, is a famous example of that.
Yeah.
But do you reckon that's the case with this film?
I guess it's hard to know because we had successful overseas before here. I think we would have always had a pretty good, strong interest from Australian audiences with this story. Australians love, that sort of true crime, uncompromising genre. Certain audiences do, anyway.
Yeah.
But we kind of always just went out to make the best film possible, and then roll the dice really.
Okay. Well, as I said, I think that this is an example of the kind of film that we need to see more of from Australia. Being very careful not to say that that's a diss against the beautiful art movies that we make, especially at the festival this year. There are some beautiful films, but there is a sense that there is an imbalance. We make too many terrific art house films. The footprint in the art houses is big enough. We need a bigger imprint in the multiplexes, where I think this film is going to do well Did you guys intend this film as a balls to the wall genre film?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I mean, and I've grown up loving art house films and also balls to the wall genre films, and I think that this film strikes a good balance between both. Like, it's kind of like there's a lot at its heart. It's a story of family, and it's got really deep themes and power plays that play within the film and beautiful performances. But at the same time, it's pretty fucking action packed. It's it's a 90-minute film. I think we're in danger of making too many 2-hour films when they could be 90 minutes. And I always went into this for the guy on the street that likes to go into the cinema and gets a little bit more reward out of a film. There's a lot more meaning when they leave the cinema. I think that's what Matt wanted.
And Matt, did you intend the film to be a genre film when you were writing it?
I think it was always probably going to head down that way. I mean, I certainly didn't specifically or consciously go down that path. I just wrote down, got into it as a writer writing a story. But there were things in there, based on other things that had happened in this country and both internationally, that you could see a commercial prospect in it, no doubt. But that's not to say that influenced me at all. I just think that was subject matter. So
certainly, it's a very character-rich story, and that is really what drives it, which we'll get to just in a second. But again, just to cover just a couple of industry things, Matt, you wrote this 10 years ago.
Yes.
And it's being made now. Has it taken too long to get made, given your experience in the United States? From your observations, should it not take as long to make a film, or is the 10 years the 10 years it needed?
Oh, no, I don't think 10 years is needed. I think it's a matter of taking every sort of screenplay and project on their merit, but that it's also timing, and where that might sit in what's happening commercially or within the industry. So I think for it to happen quite quickly, a lot of things have got to line up together, quite in a way that perhaps is not of your own doing. So, and I think that's why so often scripts or projects take so long to get up.
Well, people as young as Luke Spark, who's a young sci-fi filmmaker,
yep.
And people as experienced as the Jacobson brothers, have said that it's just too bureaucratic, it's too labyrinthine. Trying to get, as grateful as everyone is obviously for funding, but there's too much bureaucracy involved, so it's easier and better and certainly quicker to raise finance and to raise interest from outside the system here. Do you think that's a fair comment, and have you had experience with that?
I think one of the things that really just catapulted this film to getting going was Jamie and Michael from Seed Pictures. Like, Jamie brought on, is amazing at raising the funds to get the film done, along with Matt's experience in the industry to get interest in the film. But they really enabled us to be able to have more of a drive with getting funding from Screen Australia and things like that. So it all happened pretty quickly once the team got together.
But like from a filmmaking point of view, for young filmmakers in any case, because the way the technology is so available and accessible, you can make a feature film, and if it's good enough, you can make it with finance that you could raise, not easily, but certainly much easier and in a way and a capacity that would still make a feature film than what it might have been 10 years ago. So I think for younger filmmakers, if they don't want to get caught in that labyrinth, and it can be a labyrinth, then the onus is then on them to explore as filmmakers how they can bring their stories to the screen. And I think there's always going to be a place for cinema, and if it's good enough, it'll get shown. So I think that raising finance, as little as it is, still gives you an opportunity to get something out. So, but there is definitely bureaucracy amongst it, and there's a labyrinth in there, and it's such a subjective type of thing in any case. So you really have to have someone within the system who's going to champion you and get behind you. I mean, we had some, we had great leverage in some regards because we went through Screen West, and it was a script, that was funded by Screen West as an established writer. I think that absolutely helped us. And then going to Screen Australia with the cast that we had attached, that was a huge thing as well. So, there's ways through it, but it certainly can be a maze, definitely.
Yeah, I just want to get into some of the themes of the film now and some of the performances. Matt, just quickly, and of course I'll edit this out, just be wary that when you chop the table for emphasis, we get a little 3.5 Richter scale earthquake here.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can maybe chop Stephen or something, or clap your hands or something. That'd be great. in a very short time, the term toxic masculinity has been overused almost to the point where it's meaningless. But in this film, you do deal with various definitions or various takes on what masculinity is. And I'm keen to know what you had in mind, Matt, when you wrote it, and Stephen, when you directed it. What aspects of masculinity were you wanting to explore in this film?
Well, look, from a writing point of view, it had to be balanced. You have a very, overt and masculine character in Nuck, who's, dealing, I've left his sexuality purposefully ambiguous. I don't even know what he is, so, and that's, because I didn't need to go down that path. That wasn't the process, but his masculinity needed to be balanced with the other males within there. And both Ryan's character and Josh's character, there's a softer side to them, a softer edge. And notwithstanding the fact that most men that go into these subcultures are incredibly masculine, and amongst their peers and the people they grew up with would have been seen as the silverback. So, but it had to be balanced. So, the term toxic masculinity is, I think, overused. And so, what it was for me as a writer was balancing, more masculinity against some other masculine characters, but also other sides to their character that could, balance it out, like I say, be a counterpoint. So it wasn't just that one note. So
yeah, you certainly understood from Nuck's point of view why he does the things he does. Yeah. So I guess it's a tribute to the way the film's been directed and written, that you're saying that you weren't sure which way he was going, but the reading from the character, he's able to frame it very clearly that what he does in prison is that he recognises that as a power, a means of acquiring and asserting power, and of getting people to submit to it. Anyway, so now while we've got, everyone's talking about toxic masculinity, no one's talking that much about toxic femininity. And I think you addressed that in this movie through the character of, is it Katrina? The Abby Lee character?
Yeah.
What a bitch you guys have created. She's a calculating, manipulative bitch.
Yes.
And the performance, if she doesn't get an award or a nomination for this performance, it'd be stunning.
I think they both deserve it.
They're both extraordinary. They're two, pretty awful women who obviously hate each other. Can you tell me a bit about the construction of these women, and again what you were looking at, because the Katrina character especially goes from generic bikie mold, good-looking bikie mold, to power player very quickly, and it's a very, very impressive turnaround.
Yeah, look, I think with we were very, very conscious, even at the scripting point, because we went over that together at different stages, that the females had to be strong to offset, the strength of the male characters, and for me, that was the most rewarding, exciting part of the actual screenplay was writing these two women and finding their voice. As far as Hayley is concerned, we needed a woman who was blindly loyal to her man and the man as the president, and who would be uncompromising on his behalf, on his defending him. The point where nothing anyone would say is ever going to hurt her from that point of view.
They're a team.
They're a team, but they're teammates, and it's only right at the end that turns for her. As far as Katrina is concerned, we needed this, a very calculating, manipulative character, but someone who was as driven as power to power as Nucky's. So the balance of power there, the most ambitious person in it, the two most ambitious people in it are Hayley and Katrina.
Yeah.
Hayley wanting to keep the power, and Nucky doesn't really care because he thinks he's always going to have it. And Katrina, who's after the power.
They actually drive the plot.
They do.
Yeah, they do. And that was something that I was immediately interested in the script. It was like, holy fuck, the Shakespearean tones in here, but we've got two Lady Macbeths in here, and we really worked hard for about a year developing that to bring it out. Matt did a terrific job with this.
And we were lucky in the casting as well. Kirsten McGregor did a wonderful job of offering up all these people, and Abby, I hadn't seen in anything but Mad Max. Stephen had a chat with her and
saw Neon
Demon. And he said, no, I think she's right. So we took a leap of faith there, and so glad that we did. And then with Simone, I'd always been a fan of her work in any case. The fact that she was part Indigenous, part Maori, and she sent an email through, we're the same age and shared the same age, and she sent an email through describing how important it was for the women in this to understand and have to have endured violence. And she had some really strong references from back in New Zealand with that. And then she read, and she was one of the first ladies we saw, and we were like, no one really came.
No, she knocked it out of the park.
So
Yeah.
we were very lucky with those girls, and they're both transformative performances in the sense. Someone said to me the other day from Icon, someone looks 10 years older in the film
Yeah.
than she does in real life. And Abby's nothing like that. Abby's this very earthy suburban
Super
girl.
gentle, hippie kind of.
So they were amazing.
I am going to move on, but we could talk. I'd love to talk about this for like another 10, 15 minutes.
yeah.
But I will make this point that the scene, and I'm not going to give anything away, but the scene on the couch
Yeah.
where, if I'd had something big and I felt like throwing something at the screen at her. I mean, what she's doing there is so dark.
And you can feel it with an audience.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
again, what are you doing? She knows what she's doing, and she knows why she's doing it, because he would probably end up paying the price, and none of it's going to wash back on her.
That's right.
Anyway, I'm being very careful to keep away from plot points there. Now, a couple of genius touches that I've got to find out who's responsible for. Firstly, the whole thing with the business setup with the Aaron Peterson character, Pato?
Yeah, Pato and Sugar's the Aaron Peterson character.
The whole, is this a tribute to your research? The whole thing about I'll launder your money for 30%.
Yeah.
That is a good deal.
Yeah.
Taking something that's worthless, and you will give it 70% of its value from. That is a good deal.
And that's the irony of it all, because he's actually presenting a good deal to Nuck to save, unbeknownst to him, to save his brother. But Nuck turns it down because he doesn't want to get in bed with any other club.
But that's great research. Who's this?
That really came from, we struggled with that plot points for a little while.
Yeah.
But we got